everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I can see that we've still got people signing in as I speak. So what we'll do, as usual, is we will for a minute or so, just to allow everyone who's signing in around. And in around about 1 minute time. Especially welcome to anyone who joined us on this morning's webinar, where we did have some review all of the slides. So hope registered for the webinar and joined us this afternoon. You will be probably tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that, so you will be able to watch it at your leisure. So we'll just pause things for around about another 30 seconds or so. It's running in time to get them comfortable, and we'll start in around about. Once again, I hope everybody is settled down and comfortable. Thank you very much for joining us. Latest webinar entitled Overnight Rail Journeys with Railbookers and Amtrak Vacations. I'd like to introduce myself, first of all, just to begin things. My name is Matt, and it's my pleasure to be your host on the webinar today. So before we get started, a reminder that we do have some free handouts available for you to download. You may have done so already. And a couple of those I will actually refer to, and in fact, you'll be able to see in the course of the webinar today. So if you would like to download those free handouts and you haven't done so yet, I will give you a reminder just before we're about to bring things to a close. So if you haven't done so, I will give you a reminder before the webinar finishes. Also, if you would like to ask questions at any time about anything related to the webinar, or indeed anything related to what we do overall, then please do feel free to use the questions box that you can see on the screen to send those questions through. If we have time, I'll try and maybe pick one or two to answer at the end of the webinar today. But as we normally get quite a few, don't worry if I don't manage to get through to yours, because one of the team will reach out over the next 24 hours or so to answer every question that's come through. So one way or the other, by hook or by crook, every single one will get answered. So first of all, just before we begin the main part of the webinar, a recap of who we are and what we do for anyone who perhaps hasn't travelled with us before, or maybe is new to these webinars too and hasn't attended one in the past. So what does Railbookers offer? Well, obviously all of our holidays have rail travel as one of the key components, so we include all of your rail journeys with the confirmed seat reservations. But it's not just the train travel. We also offer sightseeing activities at all the popular attractions and places of interest in the destinations that you'll be visiting, many of which enable you to skip the lines or queues outside and be able to go straight in and spend more time visiting the places you'd like to see rather than standing in a long line outside waiting to be let in. We also have a range of centrally located hotels, all of which are very easily accessible from the main train stations, and they are everything from 3-star through to 5, a variety of different styles as well, so contemporary and more traditional, and in different parts of each city as well. So if there's a key attraction that you'd like to be close to, for example, then all you need to do is let us know. Many of our holidays also include ferry journeys, exciting excursions, and of course, as we're going to be looking at today, many of them involve overnight rail journeys as well. And we'll be looking at some of our most popular in a short while. So why do our customers love traveling with Railbookers? Well, a number of different reasons. Traveling by train really does offer a great number of bucket list experiences, first of all. So that could be anything from traveling coast to coast across the USA, could be a special occasion that you've always wanted to travel to Venice on board the Orient Express, or it could be ticking off one or two of those destinations that you've always wanted to visit and just never quite got around to it. Whatever the reason, there's plenty of bucket list experiences by train. Train travel also offers unparalleled freedom and flexibility. You can go whenever it's convenient to you. Most of our holidays are available all year round. It's also the most scenic way to travel, as many of you will know, I'm sure. But often you're traveling from different landscapes. You may travel from one country into another one, or across different states in the USA, perhaps. And a lot of the time, the landscape will change as you do that. And it really does give you a sense of travel, and the journey itself becomes an integral part of the overall holiday experience. It's not just a means of traveling from A to B, although of course it is that as well, but it really is part of the overall holiday experience. And the sense of travel, I think, being able to see the landscape that you're traveling through is really, really important. All of the itineraries that you can see on the website, on the webinar today, and in the brochure, they're all customizable. So what that means is that if you'd like to make them slightly longer, slightly shorter, you'd like to add the destination in that isn't included, or perhaps you'd like to spend longer in one destination than we have advertised, that's no problem. All you need to do is let us know. And really the key message is that all of these holidays go anytime, any day, anywhere. So as long as the train goes there, then so do we. Whether you want to travel in 2 days' time or 2 years' time. Obviously, at the moment, it's probably less likely that it's going to be 2 days' time, but whenever it might be, that's really the key message. You can do it whenever you'd like to. And all of these holidays are ABTA and ATOL protected as well. You also benefit from 24-hour support from our global offices. For example, there's not just ourselves in London, but we also have colleagues in Sydney, Toronto, and 2 offices in the USA, Beverly, which is just outside Boston on the East Coast, and Laguna Hills in California on the West Coast. We also currently have a maximum flexibility offer in place. For all new reservations, you can change your travel dates or postpone your rail holiday at any point up until 5 days prior to departure without incurring any change fees to do so. And that is exactly the same for all existing reservations too. They can be postponed or rescheduled at any point up until 5 days prior to departure without incurring any fees. Now, I mentioned the handouts that you can download, and this is one of them. This great little map here shows many of the main rail routes within Europe. Obviously, not all of them, just a selection of the some of the most important. And each color refers to either a different operator or different type of train. And really, I think one of the confusing things can be that they don't always talk to each other, for want of a better word, as well as they might do. They certainly don't release all of the journeys for booking at the same time, and they don't always release them when they're supposed to, full stop. Plus, it can just be a little bit confusing when there's more than one way of traveling from A to B to know which is the best option to choose, which is going to be the most scenic option, which one will be the fastest way of traveling from A to B, and which one is recommended full stop, I suppose, really. So we're here to take the mystery and complexity out of things for you. And one way that we do that is work directly with all of the main rail operators in Europe, North America, and beyond. So including our good friends at Trenitalia, Deutsche Bahn, SNCF, Renfe, who are Spanish railways, Swiss railways, Eurostar, where so many of our holidays begin and come to an end, and across the pond with Via Rail in Canada, Amtrak, of course, and many more too. So they allow us to do a number of things. I mean, one thing those direct partnerships allow us to do is to, of course, have access to the best pricing for you, which is obviously very important. But not only that, it allows us to be able to advertise all the holidays that you'll see here up to 2 years in advance, which is important anyway, I think, because if you're traveling, peak time or for a special occasion that you really want to make sure you're in a certain place at a certain date, it's important to be able to book in advance to secure that. But particularly, it's important at the moment because let's face it, none of us are traveling anywhere right now, unfortunately, are we? We'd all like to be, I'm sure, but it's handy to be able to book these things further out. And let's face it, everyone needs things to look forward to, don't they? Particularly at the current time. Speaking of which, the current time, one of the questions that we are getting asked at the moment is how rail operators are maintaining a safe environment. And there's a number of different things that they're doing. They're requiring facial coverings in stations and on trains for both passengers and staff. In many cases, they're stopping the sale of food and drink on board trains. They're also changing the seat configuration and seat allotment on board to allow for social distancing. They're also increasing the cleaning and sanitation measures that are in place. And where possible, most operators are doing contactless ticket control as well, really just to keep that social distancing whenever possible. What we like to say is, so we know because we go. So I can vouch for this motley collection of individuals that you can see here, because they're some of my colleagues enjoying some of the trips that we offer each year. We're very lucky to be able to experience one of the itineraries that we feature. And the idea behind that, of course, is so that we're able to both be familiar with the destinations, the rail travel, of course, the hotels that we feature, the tours and so on, but also so that if you have any more in-depth questions on a particular itinerary or holiday, there'll always be one of the team who's done that particular trip and will be able to answer any questions that you might have. So let's look at five activities, including some wonderful overnight journeys. And the first one that we'll start with is definitely one that includes at least two, I would say, bucket list experiences. We spoke about bucket list experiences before. There's definitely a few in here. And really the clue is in the title, the Bernina Express and Venice-Simplon-Orient Express from Venice. So this is an 8-day holiday. Now this one, you'll see that it says that in the top left-hand corner, the journey starts with flights from the UK to Zurich. Anytime you see that, which might appear once or twice in the course of this webinar, or if you see it on our website, there doesn't have to be a flight involved if you prefer not to fly. We know many of you don't, which is absolutely fine. So we'll always have two versions of these particular holidays with flights involved, one with air travel and one without. So you could just as easily replace that flight with a Eurostar journey over from London through to Paris, and then high-speed train journey from Paris through to Zurich. After Zurich, we head down to St. Moritz in Switzerland for a 2-night stay, followed by a journey on the very scenic Bernina Express route from St. Moritz down to Tirano, which is on the border with Italy, from where you head down to Milan and then on to Venice for a 3-night stay, including small group tours of the Doge's Palace and Golden Basilica, and a small group walking tour in Venice. And after 3 nights in that fantastic destination, it's time to do another one of the highlights of the trip and board the Venice-Simplon-Orient Express, where you'll travel overnight. You'd leave Venice around about 10 o'clock or so in the morning, and then arrive back into London at 5 p.m. the following day. And it's a really fantastic journey with some stunning alpine scenery en route. So let's take a closer look. And here we have some shots showing you what life is like on board. And really, as I think you can guess from taking a look at that, it's a pretty special experience, and it really does harken back to the golden age of rail travel. It is like traveling back in time in a sense, really. The image that you can see on the right-hand side, the larger one, that's a shot of the bar car, which is the social hub of the train. And this is where everybody will gather at a lot of times of day, really, but certainly pre and post dinner. And there are 3 separate dining cars. In fact, if you ask your steward on board, they'll see if you can eat in different one at different times throughout the trip, so you can experience the different dining cars that are available. And on the top left, you can see a wonderful example, if you like seafood, that is, of some of the meals that are provided, all freshly cooked to order on board the train. So we've got some fantastic lobster by the looks of it there. Full silver service, as you would expect, and really staff are absolutely wonderful. Nothing is too much trouble. You're very well looked after. You're certainly very well fed. And then on the bottom left, you can see one of the cabins on board the train. So when you board the train during the day, you'll have very comfortable seating. And then while you are at dinner, your steward will be making the cabin ready for the evening. So it will be turned into overnight accommodation, as you can see there, with your beds one above the other one. And if you look just towards the bottom of the screen, you will see the ultimate fashion accessory, which is of course the Orient Express slippers, which no trip is complete without the Orient Express slippers, of course. But all joking aside, it is a very, very comfortable experience. The stewards who look after the cabins as well really do, check in on you regularly to make sure you've got everything you need, and they're very, very attentive, look after you very, very well. And you'll find that on this particular journey, people really do dress for the occasion. So you'll see lots of evening dress, etc. for the evening. People really do get into the spirit of things. So it really is, if you were to wander on board the train, it really is like you were traveling back in time. It's a very, very wonderful experience, and perfect really if you do have a special occasion and you were thinking of taking this particular journey to celebrate. It is a very memorable journey that will provide memories for a lifetime, I'm sure. As for a different way, I suppose, will the Bernina Express, which is the other one of the highlights of this particular trip, I would say. And this is an absolutely spectacular journey that you, on this holiday, take from St. Moritz in Switzerland down to Tirano on the border with Italy. And the scenery is absolutely stunning, as I think the image on the top left shows, really, doesn't it? Absolutely beautiful. You get the full gambit from lakes, mountains, peaks, etc. It's all there. And in fact, the whole route of the journey is UNESCO World Heritage listed, which gives you an indication of the natural beauty of the landscape that you're passing through. You can also see in the image on the bottom left the wonderful panoramic windows that reach from your seat all the way up to the ceiling. So wherever you're sat, you get an absolutely fantastic view. To really maximize that scenery, all of the seats line up perfectly against the windows as well. So wherever you're sat, you get the absolutely best possible view of all of the scenery. There are no bad seats on board this train. Everyone gets a fantastic view, and you're very well looked after throughout as well. And of course, once you've completed that journey and then headed on into Italy, then what a fantastic destination you have awaiting you, Venice, of course. And here we've got the Doge's Palace. We include a small group tour of the Doge's Palace and the Golden Basilica in your stay in Venice. The Doge was the supreme authority of the former Venetian Republic. And the building itself, the palace, is very famous for its Venetian Gothic architecture. Originally opened back in 1424, so pretty stunning and pretty special, I think you will agree. And a wonderful destination, one that you can lose yourself in and always go back to time and time again. An equally fantastic destination is St. Moritz, which you can see on the right-hand side, which is for anyone who's not familiar with it, it's a luxury alpine resort town in the Engadine Valley, which is in fact 1,800 meters above sea level. So what I think is one of the great things about St. Moritz is that it really offers lots of great open air activities, lots of wide open spaces, perfect for walking, taking in the views. There's also a few cable cars and things that you can take to go a little bit further up above the town and have fantastic views looking down over it. So anything that you like to do in the wide open spaces, really, St. Moritz has all of those activities to offer. It's also great for shopping. So if any of you, would rather be indulging in retail therapy instead, then this is definitely the place to go. It's got all of the big stores that are located there as well. So lots of famous names, but yeah, lots of greenery, lots of open spaces, lots of shopping, and also a few local quirks as well. It's you might know that in Switzerland they speak a few different languages depending what part of the country you're in. So some parts of the country speak French, some speak German, some speak Italian, and in this little quarter of Switzerland, the Graubünden area, it's one of the few remaining places where they still speak the language of Romansh, which I think is always nice when these languages and traditions continue. Of course, makes it very interesting. You'll still see them appear on menus, things like that. It also gives me the opportunity to make the appalling pun that Romansh is not dead in this part of Switzerland. So there's always that additional benefit, or otherwise, as you may agree. But I think it's nice that all these local traditions still continue. Closer now to something altogether different. The next holiday up is to the Scottish Highlands and the Isle of Skye, so much closer to home. And here the journey begins and ends in London. We start off with one night on board the Caledonian Sleeper, heading up to Inverness for a 3-night stay, including a hop-on, hop-off sightseeing tour and also a full-day tour to Skye and Eilean Castle. After that, it's time to head south for a 2-night stay in the Scottish capital, Edinburgh, before heading back by train, but by day this time, down through to London. And you can see actually the train journey, you can see the way it hugs the coast back from Edinburgh down to London. You actually, the first part of that journey, you get some really great views of the coastline and the sea as well. So I highly recommend that one. If you really wanted to, though, you could take the Caledonian Sleeper back overnight from Edinburgh as well. If you wanted even more time, that would be possible too. So let's have a little look at the Caledonian Sleeper and see what it's like on board. So there are 3 different types of cabins available. The first one they call the Classic Room, which looks a little bit like the one that you can see on the right-hand side. So you've got bunk bed style in the traditional way, one above the other. And the next category up is called the Club Room, which is very similar to that, but the main difference is that it includes an ensuite bathroom, and you also have breakfast included in the club lounge the next morning. And finally, last but not least, we have the Caledonian Double, and the clue is in the name, I guess, because as well as being also fully ensuite and including breakfast and having several amenities provided and many other things too, the main selling point here, really, the USP, is that you get a double bed, as you can see here. Which, as anyone who's travelled overnight by train will tell you, I'm sure, these are few and far between. There's very few services that offer this. So not quite as rare as hen's teeth, but we're not far off it. So if you do like the look of one of those and think, that looks like a pretty enjoyable experience, there are only 2 or 3 of these cabins per train. So if this is the cabin type that you want, really, the early bird catches the worm here. The earlier you look to book, the more chance you have of getting that cabin type available. You also get the opportunity, if you would like to, you can order an evening meal as you head off in the club lounge, as you can see the image on the top left, or even just enjoy a drink and as the train heads off into the evening and starts to head north. And if you fancy, getting into the swing of things, I can recommend they do serve a very tasty haggis, patties and neeps, which I have sampled on board the Caledonian Sleeper, and it's a nice way of, getting into the Scottish frame of mind, I think, and well worth trying. So I can highly recommend that. But there's lots of other different types of meals available, and for those who like that sort of thing, there is a full range of different types of malts available as well for anyone who wants to do a little bit of investigation on that front as well. So plenty to keep you occupied, and pretty much brand new carriages, brand new facilities, as you can see here. All these cabin types are brand new as of last year. So very comfortable, and it really is like a to quote the old cliche, it is like a hotel on wheels, really, and you're very well looked after on board the train. And Inverness is where we arrived, the largest city in the Highlands, and we have a hop-on, hop-off sightseeing tour included here, so which is great, I think, particularly for destinations that you don't know so well, because you get taken to all of the main sites and places of interest, and you can spend more time at the places that interest you, which in Inverness will certainly include the 19th century cathedral, the indoor Victorian market, and also the mostly 18th century old high church too. We also have a full day tour to the Isle of Skye, and as you can see in that great image on the right hand side, which I think looks particularly attractive when you've been stuck inside for 10 weeks or whatever it is, it's nice to be able to look at wide open spaces like that, isn't it? And think, yeah, one day we'll be able to do that again. But really great natural beauty, of course, and different landscapes from the rugged coastlines that you can see there. There's also medieval castles, small picturesque fishing villages, plenty to take in, and hopefully you get to see some of the native wildlife as well. You know, puffins or seals and dolphins are all common around those parts. And Eilean Castle. Eilean is a small tidal island where three lochs meet and converge, and it's got a wonderfully picturesque castle in the middle. So a very, very popular part of the island, and one that is included on the tour. And it's a full day tour, this one, to make sure you get them, you know, as much time as possible over there and get to take in plenty of the scenery, because obviously there's lots and lots of different varied parts of the island to visit. And then departing Inverness, it's time to head south to Edinburgh, the Scottish capital. And one of my favourite places to visit. I think I love the contrast between the medieval old town and the Georgian new town. They're also on two different levels as well, which always fascinates me every time I go back there. And plenty of interesting alleyways to wander down as well. Again, we have a city tour included where you get to explore both. And perhaps, who knows, you might visit Edinburgh Castle, home to the crown jewels of Scotland, of course. Or if you're feeling adventurous, you could always try climbing Arthur's Seat for some fantastic views over the city as well. And then we finish up with a night in London at the end before heading back home. And again, we have a hop-on, hop-off sightseeing tour included in London, so you can visit, you know, all of the attractions that you'd like to see, and also acts as your transportation to get you around the city as well. So whether it's Buckingham Palace, the Tower of London, whatever it might be, Houses of Parliament, the hop-on, hop-off tour will take you around there, and you can spend more time at the places that interest you. A slight detour just for a second, just to go back and reconfirm that all of these trips can be customized. So what does that mean? It might be that you see the itinerary, the little map that we've looked at on the start of each page, and think that you'd like to add on a destination. So, you know, any of the trips that you've seen here, if you'd like to add on a destination, that's perfectly possible. If you'd like to make it a round trip, so you'd like to start and finish in the same destination, that's possible too. So a bit like the example we have on screen there in the middle, finishing in Zurich, starting in Geneva. If you'd rather start and finish in Geneva or Zurich, that's no problem. You just need to let us know. Similarly, if you like the look of the itinerary, but you'd rather do it in the reverse direction, that's fine as well. And one, of course, you know, classic example of that really is that Bernina Express and Orient Express holiday that we looked at to start things off. You may well decide that you'd like to start in style on the Orient Express and approach Venice on board that most famous of train journeys. So if you'd like to do it that way around, again, that's no problem. You just need to let us know. Also, you might want to upgrade one or more of the journeys to first class, perhaps for, you know, extra comfort, space, legroom, all of those things. And we find people have, you know, again, everybody's slightly different when people ask about that. Some people would like to upgrade all of the journeys. Sometimes people just want to upgrade one or two. It could be because, you know, one of the journeys is longer than the others. It could be because, you know, one of the journeys they think is one of the highlights of the trips, for example, for example, the Bernina Express might be the one that, you know, people really want to do in first class, to do that one in style and, you know, have the best possible experience that they can do. So whatever's right for you, if you'd like to upgrade any or all of the journeys in first class, or, you know, ask us, you know, what you get to upgrade and to make your mind up, then all you need to do is let us know. So similarly, if you'd like to upgrade or either upgrade your sightseeing to a private tour or to add additional sightseeing tours into any particular places you'd like to visit, again, all you need to do is let us know. A different type of overnight journey this time, and it's back through to Venice, this time with a faster journey with our overnight train to Venice. So we start off with Eurostar London through to Paris, an easy change in Paris before taking the overnight train to Venice, which is based on a private compartment for two. And we have 3 nights in Venice, including a small group walking tour and a gondola ride before heading back to the UK, either by air or by taking a sleeper to travel back on the same route again. And this is what the overnight train is like. It's called a Tello, and the image you can see on the left-hand side shows you what the cabin would look like when you board the train. So you've got comfortable seating when you board, and then at some point in the early part of the evening, your cabin attendant will knock on the door and will arrange the cabin for the evening, when it will start to look a bit more like the image on the top. So again, the traditional bunk bed style, one above the other. And there are a small number of cabins available on this train again, which have ensuite facilities, so have their own private bathroom within the cabin. Again, if it's one of those you want, really I can't emphasize enough those, because there aren't as many of them, they'll go quicker. So the earlier you inquire, the more likely you are to get them available. If not, it's just a short walk down the corridor to the facilities on board. There is also a restaurant car available too, where you can get a meal. Of course, plenty of great places to do that. Perhaps in Paris before boarding the train. There's actually a very famous restaurant at the train station called Le Train Bleu, which, if you allow a couple of hours, while changing, is very, very highly recommended, and plenty of great places in Venice too. But yeah, there is a restaurant car on board the train, and also you can just order some drinks, or coffee or whatever it might be, and relax there in the evening before heading back to your cabin too. It's also where you can enjoy breakfast in the morning, and in fact, sleeping car passengers get a light breakfast included in the cost of their ticket as well. And then we've got that wonderful destination to arrive in. One of the great things about Venice, and there's so many of them, aren't there? But if you travel to Venice by train, for anyone who hasn't done so, one of the fantastic things about it is that there's 2 fantastic parts to it, I think. The first is when you approach Venice Santa Lucia, there are 2 stations in Venice. One that's on the part of the Venice which is on the mainland, which is not where you'll be staying when you travel with us, because there's nothing worth visiting there, to be frank. But the second station is on the islands, which is where you want to be, Venice Santa Lucia. When you travel from one to the other, which is how all of the train lines converge on Venice, you actually cross over the lagoon, and either side of you is water, and it's just absolutely amazing as you head across the tracks to Santa Lucia station. Then when you walk out of the station at the end, the start of the Grand Canal is in front of you, and literally, literally as you walk out of the station from the steps, you can see the canal in front of you. Anyone who's done it before will know exactly what I mean. And it's just a fantastic, welcome to the city, because you couldn't be anywhere else. And it's just so unique, so fun, so beautiful. It makes it really, really special. You've arrived instantly. I can't think of too many other places where you literally walk out of the station, you don't even move, and you're confronted by this amazing view right in front of you. It's absolutely fantastic. And we've mentioned some of the great places to visit already, haven't we? The Doge's Palace, the St. Mark's Square, of course. But one thing I definitely recommend doing in Venice is when you're staying there, just try and squeeze an hour or so into your itinerary, just to go for a short wander with no particular destination in mind, and you'll wander down, I'm pretty sure, a street maybe looking not too different from this one, where there isn't a particular attraction there or place of interest, but you'll get to see a little bit of a glimpse of life in the Venice that the residents, the Venetians, live in. So a lot of these buildings will be homes or apartments, and you might see people about their daily business, going to get their shopping or whatever it might be, and it's really, really fascinating just to watch life unfold in front of you before you head back to some of the more popular tourist attractions. So I highly recommend doing that. But however you choose to spend your time, it's such a unique destination. It's just isn't really like anywhere else, is it? So we talked about bucket list destinations before. If you've not been and you've always wanted to, then I would say bump this one up to close to the top of your list, I would say, because it is worth it. It is different from anywhere else. It does feel like that, and it is pretty special. We also have some shorter, quick getaways available if you'd like, somewhere a little bit of a shorter holiday in mind, perhaps. So one of those is our Vienna city break, which you can see on the left-hand side. Again, this features an overnight train, so it's a matter of Eurostar journey over to Brussels, which is around about 1 hour 50 minutes, and then changing trains, just a very easy platform change in Brussels over to Cologne, around about the same length of journey for 2 hours, before taking an overnight sleeper to Vienna. And that works in the same way, very similar to the train we looked at on the journey heading over to Venice on the Tello sleeper as well. It's not exactly the same type of train, but same sorts of accommodation available. Again, there's only a handful of sleepers with ensuite cabins available. So if you'd like one of those, the early bird catches the worm once again. A couple of great tips for this one is there are 2 days a week when the sleeper actually will depart all the way from Brussels to Vienna. So you don't need to travel to Cologne. You can just do it with 2 trains rather than 3. Not that it's difficult with 3, but it's worth knowing. But if you do head via Cologne, a nice thing that you can do, which I would highly recommend, and I'm sure lots of people are sat at home nodding their heads knowing exactly what I'm going to say, is that you'll have plenty of time after arriving in Cologne before the sleeper is due to depart. If you go to the exit of the main station and literally just look to your left, the famous cathedral in Cologne is pretty much right in front of you, a stone's throw away. So you've got plenty of time for photos. You can go inside the cathedral, have a look around too. So well worth doing. And another thing that's worth doing is you're close to the old town there. So there's lots of nice restaurants that you could grab a meal before taking the sleeper journey overnight. There are left luggage lockers in the station if you don't want to bring your luggage with you. Although, of course, if you don't mind wheeling it along after you, then obviously you can take it with you as well, whichever you prefer. We've also got, this one actually doesn't involve an overnight journey, but just as another example of a quick getaway, we've got a Barcelona city break as well. And this one is just the 2 trains, London to Paris. So if you leave around about 9:20 in the morning, change over in Paris, and then you would arrive into Barcelona early evening. It's direct high-speed train all the way from the center of Paris to the center of Barcelona. And again, there's some nice parts to that journey as well. You get glimpses of the River Rhone. And then towards the second part of the journey, you see some of the lagoons in the Languedoc-Roussillon area. And you also get great views of the Pyrenees as well. So a nice journey. And one thing I recommend, again, a nice tip for this one, is if you travel on that journey with us from Paris to Barcelona, ask if you can get a seat on board the top deck of the train if possible. Reason I say that, although obviously the scenery is the same, but it's actually a double-decker train, which is the reason for asking. And you can see that a little bit further. The view is just that little bit more enhanced, I think, rather than looking up. You're looking down and across, so you just get to see that a little bit more. I think it just, maybe it's nothing, but to me, I just think it makes the journey better. So if you do that particular one, make sure you ask out for that, and we'll do it for you if we can, because it really does just put the hat on it, I think, and just make it even better. Right, time to jump across the pond now, and this is another one of those handouts that you can download that I mentioned before, and this is the Amtrak Vacations Systems map showing the rail network or the main lines running across the USA. So again, all of the different colors refer to a different type of train, and they've all got fantastic names in many cases as well. Of course, things like the Empire Builder and the Southwest Chief and the Sunset Limited and other fantastically named trains. But the good news is, for when we look at the overnight journeys, whatever the exotic name they have, the facilities and types of accommodation are all exactly the same. So again, if you'd like to download one of these, I'll give you a reminder as we get closer towards the end of the journey, but make sure you do if you'd like to have your own copy of this particular map. A reminder that traveling by train in the USA, obviously it takes you from city centre to city centre, but not just that, it also allows you to connect really well with some of the wonderful wide open spaces of the US national parks. We'll see a couple of examples of that in the holidays we'll look at in just a moment, but whether it's the Grand Canyon, Rocky Mountain National Park, Zion National Park, Bryce, Canyonlands, wherever it might be, all of these wonderful wide open spaces are very, very easy to access by train. And we'll see some great examples of that. Here's the first holiday itinerary that we'll look at, which is our Great American Majestic Landscapes itinerary. And this is a really good holiday if, for example, we talked about bucket list experiences earlier. If you've always wanted to travel across the USA from coast to coast, this could be a really good option for you because it's a great way of doing it. We start off in New York City on the East Coast for a 2-night stay before heading overnight on board a train called the Lakeshore Limited to Chicago, the Windy City, where we have 2 nights. And then we board one of the most scenic rail journeys in North America, the California Zephyr. Now we have 2 nights on board this train, but it's broken up. So we have 1 night heading through Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, before arriving in Denver, where we have a 2-night stay and you visit Rocky Mountain National Park, absolutely beautiful. And then you reboard the California Zephyr and head through Utah, Nevada, before finally arriving into California and spending 2 nights spending 2 nights in San Francisco, and also, I think you've deserved it at the end of this, having some wine tasting in the Napa Valley. Great way to finish off the holiday. So this is New York, of course, doesn't really need any introduction, knows where that is. And this is where the holiday begins with a 2-night stay. Again, we've got the hop on, hop off tour included, which is really useful in New York because it's very spread out. The boroughs are all quite large, so it's a great way of getting around. Whatever the places are that you want to visit, whether it's relaxing in Central Park, heading up the Empire State Building, or as we can see here, heading over to Ellis Island and seeing the Statue of Liberty and exploring. There's a wonderful museum there that tells you lots and lots of great information about some of the first journeys over to the US, and I'd well recommend going over there if you've not visited it before, because it's absolutely fascinating. But whatever it is that you fancy doing, New York, obviously the city that never sleeps, has got everything that you'd like to do, whether it's history, shopping, food, whatever it might be. There's plenty of different options available. Then you board the Lakeshore Limited over to Chicago, and this is a nice train journey as well. The daylight parts of the trip, actually, you get to see some great scenery on this one. You get to cross over the Hudson River, and you pass along Lake Michigan for a time as well. And then you arrive in Chicago, the Windy City, where we have a 2-night stay, including a hop-on, hop-off tour once again, but also the Chicago Pass, which gets you access to many of the main museums and attractions in Chicago, including the Art Institute, the planetarium, and also this wonderful viewing area called the Skye Deck. Wonderful that is, unless if you're suffer from vertigo or anything like that, because not only do you get some great views over the skyline, everything is made of glass. You can see obviously straight out. You can also see straight down. So if you're braver than me, which is not too difficult, I wouldn't say, you can have a look down and just marvel at the way that's been put together and all the amazing architecture. And last but not least, the image you can see on the screen there is not a giant silver hot dog, which somebody once did ask. It is a wonderful bit of sculpture called the Cloud Gate, also known as the Bean, designed by a sculptor called Anish Kapoor. And I think you can see here, although obviously it's better close up, but I think you can see that it reflects the skyline and distorts, the skyline surroundings back at you. So it's very, very interesting, and it really has become a symbol of the city, I think, in lots of ways too. And then after leaving Chicago, this is the train that you board, the California Zephyr. And we say here that it's one of the most scenic routes with Amtrak from Chicago through to San Francisco. And I think if you were to twist my arm and say, which is the best one, this is the one I would probably go for, I think. No less an authority than our good friend, the man in seat 61, rates this as not only his favorite train journey in North America, but also one of his favorites around the world, full stop. So, who are we to argue with him? I'd probably say it's the you know, it's probably the most scenic one. If I had to choose one, I'd pick this one. And the reason that I would do that is because the journey is absolutely beautiful, but the landscape changes considerably as you go across. You know, you're traveling over several states here, so you get to see lots and lots of different types of scenery. After you leave Chicago, you cross the Mississippi to start with. So that's pretty great in itself, really, crossing over Old Man River. And then you obviously head over towards Denver, where we have the 2-night stay. And then after you leave Denver, this is where it gets really good, because you get views of the Rocky Mountains, of course, but then you also pass on through to the Colorado Canyons, the Utah Desert, and the snow-capped Sierra Nevada mountains too. And all of these places that I just mentioned, you see all of these during daylight hours as well. So none of this is when it's dark. These are all things that you get to see by daylight as the train passes through. So absolutely amazing scenery, but I think the fact that it's so varied and it changes so often, you get to see so many different types of landscape. This is why I would probably say I think it's the best one. Not that there aren't some other great ones, there are, but I think this one really is. You know, if I had to choose one, this is the one I would say is number one in the USA, and that's why. Absolutely spectacular. I won't go on, but as I mentioned, we have a full day visiting Rocky Mountain National Park. So we talked about beautiful, wide open spaces. Well, I think that fits the bill, doesn't it? Pretty special, as you can see there, the Great Rocky Mountains, wonderful landscapes there, and hopefully, you know, you'll get to see some of that great wildlife that the Rocky Mountain National Park is known for. So, elk, moose, deer, who knows, maybe a bear or two if you're lucky. You never know. But also, you get to drive over Continental Divide, which is over 11,000 feet above sea level, and that's a pretty special experience too. So then you're back on the Zephyr, seeing some of that wonderful scenery that I just mentioned, the Colorado Canyon, Sierra Nevada, Utah deserts, and so on. And then you arrive into San Francisco for a 2-night stay. So the first day, obviously, you can do whatever you'd like to. You might want to visit the Golden Gate Bridge, or you know, wander down to the Bay Area, see Pier 39, say hello to the sea lions there. I'll use one of the wonderful old trams that they have traveling around the city. And then the second day, you've got some wine tasting at Napa Valley, so a great way to relax at the end of the trip. And who knows, maybe even take a bottle or two back home with you as a souvenir as well. Just read what's included on this particular holiday, because there's quite a few inclusions. We've got the multi-day hop-on, hop-off sightseeing tours in New York and Chicago. Again, you know, looking out of my window at the northeast London skyline, which doesn't look anything like that. It's nice to be able to look at that wonderful image of Rocky Mountain National Park, where again we have the sightseeing tour included. We've got the Napa Valley wine tasting tour as well, the Chicago attraction pass, and altogether there's 8 nights hotel accommodation and 3 nights on board Amtrak. All of which begs the question, as I'm sure some of you are asking, and by the looks of it, somebody's typing as well. What's it like on board? Well, we'll look at one more holiday in the US, and then we'll look at what the accommodation's like, because it'll be the same for both. So bear with me a minute or two, and we'll have a look at that in just a second. So before we do, we've got another holiday to look at, which is Route 66 by rail. And of course, Route 66 is very famous to do by car, but you can also do the journey by train as well. So starting off, we start off this time in Chicago with a 2-night stay. So obviously, we talked about customizing. This could be another great way of going coast to coast, because you could travel New York to Chicago first if you wanted to visit New York to begin with. And then this would be another routing which would be different, but also very interesting to do, I think. So anyway, starting off in Chicago, 2 nights once again, then leaving Illinois, heading into Missouri for a 2-night stay in St. Louis, and then taking an overnight journey on the Southwest Chief. I told you they all had exotic names, didn't I? Southwest Chief, heading through Oklahoma and the northern part of Texas before arriving into Albuquerque, New Mexico for a 2-night stay. Then you head into Arizona and arrive into Williams the next evening. That's really just an overnight stay, because the next morning, what it's all about is heading over to take the Grand Canyon Railway into the Grand Canyon National Park, and you have 2 nights staying inside the national park itself. Then it's back to Williams to board the Southwest Chief again, and one more night overnight as you head into California, and then have 2 nights in Los Angeles before finishing things up and heading home. So on the left-hand side, this is St. Louis, and the large structure that you can see there is the Gateway Arch, also known as the Gateway to the West, and it's the largest man-made natural monument in the USA. On the right-hand side, we've got an aerial shot of some of the surrounding countryside surrounding Albuquerque. And actually, while you're staying there, we include a walking tour of the old town, which is really interesting, I think, because you get to learn a lot about the early pioneers and also the Civil War, amongst many other things too. But it's really interesting being in New Mexico and learning lots about the history of the area and also national history as well. But a fascinating way to spend a couple of hours. And then, as I say, you take Southwest Chief over to Williams, and then the next morning you board the Grand Canyon Railway, where you can enjoy views of the canyon in comfort and style. And there's a few other interesting activities that are arranged on board the train as well, just to get you into the swing of things before you head into the Grand Canyon National Park. And really, again, that's another destination that just doesn't need any further introduction, does it? It's another one of those that's on many people's bucket list, many of yours, I'm sure. And you have 2 nights here, so you get plenty of time to explore the national park. One of the highlights is you have a motor coach tour of the South Rim, where you've got the opportunity for lots of amazing photo opportunities, videos, and everything else, and plenty of free time to explore on your own as well. Then it's back to Williams and overnight on the Southwest Chief to LA, which is where you finish things up. Now, Los Angeles, of course, is very spread out for anyone who's not been there before. It's almost, rather than kind of imagining it like being like one city, it's almost like a lot of towns that are very close together and connected up rather than having one specific center. So there's lots of different parts that you may want to visit, whether it's Hollywood, seeing all the signs on the Walk of Fame, or visiting the film stars' homes, which is actually a tour that we have included on this particular holiday, or shopping at Rodeo Drive, or heading over to the beach. And one thing that you should actually do on this particular holiday is in Chicago at the start of the trip, there's actually a sign where you can have your picture taken next to the start of Route 66. And then at Santa Monica Pier, Los Angeles, we have the end of Route 66. You can have your picture taken at the start and end. And Santa Monica is actually a really nice beachside part of the city. So if you'd like to relax, in some sun and beachside environment, that's definitely a nice part of the city that I might recommend. And this is the train that you travel on from Chicago over to Albuquerque, and so from St. Louis over to Albuquerque, and then also that you take onwards from Williams through to LA. And again, equally amazing scenery, as you can see here. You go through the Red Rock Mountains, so absolutely stunning. And this is why I said it's hard to pick your absolute favorite, because the scenery on this one is fantastic too. I think the reason, if I had to pick one, I would go for the California Zephyr, is just because the scenery changes and you see lots of different types of scenery. But this is beautiful as well. And I suppose the only fair way to decide which one's best is to do both, really, isn't it? I guess. But it really is absolutely beautiful. And again, you see these wonderful types of views you can see here. You see them in daytime hours as well. So fantastic scenery, and you get a sense of travel, I think, this way, don't you? You really do get to fully take in, how you've traveled, the distances involved, the different places you pass through. As you can see from the map at the start of each of these holidays, you go through different states along the way. So you really do get a sense of what the geography and the landscape of the country, which I think is pretty amazing, really. Just to recap on 66, we've got included, we have the multi-day hop-on, hop-off sightseeing tour in Chicago, sightseeing tours of Albuquerque and the film stars' homes in Los Angeles, admission to the Gateway Arch tram in St. Louis, round trip on the Grand Canyon Railway, the Grand Canyon tour of the South Rim, and we've got 11 nights hotel accommodation plus 2 nights on board Amtrak. So we've waited long enough. What's it like on board Amtrak? Well, let's have a look. There's 3 different types of accommodation. This is the first of them. This is coach accommodation. So for anyone who has perhaps travel by train in the UK or in Europe, but not over in the US, you can see the seats are a bit larger and recline a little bit more than perhaps than we are used to. So there's lots of space. There's also lots of luggage space overhead, as you can see. You've got access to the dining car and sightseeing lounge car, or you can bring your own snacks and food on board too, if you would like to. Sleeping accommodation passengers board separately. So there's two different types of sleeping car accommodation, and one of the advantages for that is that you don't have to board along with everybody else. You have your own area to board the train. In fact, in most of the big stations, you've got your own lounge stroke waiting area as well. So this is obviously of particular interest at the moment because these trains are actually still running right now. And for people who are using them, they actually have their own social distancing in a way because each sleeping car has its own boarding area. And this is the first type of sleeping accommodation. It's called a roomette, and you can see, you can see a wonderful view out of the window to start with, but you can see comfortable daytime seating, two large seats facing each other that convert into beds, bunk bed style, like the European sleepers that we saw for the overnight journey. And you've got climate controls inside the roomette, so you've got your air conditioning and so on. You've also got a fold-down table, and then just a couple of steps away, you've got access to the restrooms and showers as well. So shared between just a small number of roomettes would share those. And very important point, all of your meals are included for all types of sleeping accommodation. So both this one and the next category up, which is important anyway, but also the longer the journey is, when you think about some of the journeys going from one state to another, if you're traveling all day, you get, if you're boarding the train in the morning, you get your breakfast, lunch, and evening meal, plus any soft drinks and coffees, etc., all included in the cost of your ticket. So you don't need to pay any extra for those. It's only alcohol that would be extra. And you can make those private if you like. They've all got a privacy door which you can pull across. So again, one that's something that's much in use at the moment, but whatever the reason, those can be made completely private. And the final category is the bedroom, which is a bit like a larger version of the roomette, really. You've got those large comfortable seats that become convertible beds for the evening, your climate controls inside, and then this time you've got an enclosed toilet and shower within the cabin. So you've got your own ensuite facilities, and once again, all of your meals and drinks, as I mentioned, are all included for you. You also have the option to have your dining options delivered to your private sleeper, which, as you can imagine, is something that people are definitely taking advantage of right now. But for whatever the reason, if you're a little bit tired or you've had a long day, might be something you choose to take advantage of rather than visiting the common areas, the train, the dining car, and so on. And here's some of the types of food that you can get on board the train. There's normally quite a few different options: meat, fish, vegetarian options, and what looks to be some rather tempting chocolate cake in the middle on the second from the right as well. So as we've seen, really looking at these two particular holidays, as well as traveling from city centre to city centre, you really can use the train to travel across the USA and step off into the wide open spaces of the beautiful US national parks. So really does open them up very, very well. They're very easily to access by train. So we've looked at a few different destinations over the course of our holidays we've looked at this afternoon, but maybe there's another destination that you're interested in that we haven't spoken about. It could be Scandinavia. We've not done that really. Very briefly mentioned Austria. There's lots of fantastic destinations in Switzerland and Spain, of course. We've hardly mentioned Spain. And we've talked about some overnight journeys and great scenery. Well, the Canadian Rockies offers the opportunity for both of those, and there's many other destinations besides, of course, as well. So if there is somewhere that you'd like us to include in a future webinar, then by all means use the question box to let us know. Similarly, if there's a destination that you're interested in traveling to, please let us know that too. If you would like one of the team to reach out and give you some ideas and inspiration on where you could go, what you could combine that destination with, again, feel free to let us know and we'll be happy to reach out and get in touch with you. I'd like to take a quick moment and thank everyone who has voted for us, many awards that we were nominated for. We were very happy to do well in a number of those last year, and most importantly, or most especially I should say, we were very happy to be awarded the overall winner in the Best Rail Holiday Company category at the British Travel Awards. So thank you once again to everybody who did vote for us. It's very much appreciated. You can also use the question box that we see here if you'd like to order any of our brochures, whether it's our Railbookers brochure, which has great holidays by rail in the US, Europe, and many other destinations too, or our sister company Amtrak Vacations has a number of great holidays across North America, both the USA and Canada. And if it's Canada that's of interest, well, our Via Rail Vacations brochure is absolutely stuffed to the gills with a variety of different holidays across Canada, whether it's coast to coast, exploring the Rockies, the French Quarter, whatever it might be. Lots and lots of different options there. Via Rail is the national rail operator of Canada, so again, we're their official partner. So we've got lots and lots of great ideas for travel around that beautiful country. So I did say I would remind you before the end of the webinar to download those free handouts. If you haven't yet done so and you would like to, please do consider this that reminder. That means the time is almost upon us. So if you'd like to download those free handouts, now is the time to do so before we run out of time. Quick couple of dates for your diary. Our next upcoming webinars on the 4th of June. We have 7 of the most scenic train routes in Switzerland. So if it's great scenery, great destinations that you're interested in, that's a webinar that's well worth attending. Beautiful country, Switzerland, and some of the most amazing train journeys in the world in that particular country. So well worth tuning in for that. And then on the 9th and 11th of June, we've got our top 5 holidays closer to home. So if you're not looking at traveling as far afield, that could be an interesting one to look at as well. And if there's anything you've seen that you'd like to book, very, very easy to do. All you need to do is call us or call your local travel agent who'll be happy to arrange it for you. And you can find us by visiting our website at railbookers.co.uk. Phone number is at the bottom of the screen and on the website as well. And so on a lighter note, we're all in the same boat as you, so we're all stuck at home. I was going to say we're getting used to working. We've been doing it for a little while now, so I suppose if we're not used to it now, we never will be, will we? So we're getting used to how that works. And, you know, we realise that nobody's looking at travelling right now or in the immediate future. But whenever you feel that you're able to travel again, whenever you're interested in travelling, our message really is that whenever you're ready, we're ready as well. So we're sat at home working away, and we're ready. You know, looking forward to hear from you. We've heard from many of you already, of course, but whenever you're ready to start planning, as I mentioned, we can look at all of these holidays a long way out. So whenever you're interested to start things up, we're here for you. It's, I think, as much as anything, hopefully the webinar this afternoon is a great way of being a distraction from the news and current events, really, isn't it? And a chance for us all to dream together and look together at some of these wonderful destinations you can travel to. It's nice to have things to dream about, look forward to, isn't it? And perhaps for anyone who's visited some of those destinations, it's brought back some happy memories as well. I do hope so. I did say we'll try and fit one or two questions in. Time is rapidly marching on, as it always does. If we can most probably will have to reach out to you in the course of the week just to let's see what we have here. We have a question from Frank, who is asking about how much luggage you can take with you, as we didn't feature that on the webinar. You're right, Frank, we didn't mention that. So but obviously, if you're going to North America, it's probably going to depend on the airline, because most people are probably going to be arriving by air. If it's in Europe and there's no planes involved, obviously, then it's a little bit easier to answer, because the official guideline from Eurostar, which is where you're most likely to start and finish your journey, is that you can take 2 items of luggage plus 1 item of hand luggage per person. And most people, I certainly probably couldn't carry much more than that. So pretty much if you can carry it, look after it, and it doesn't exceed those limits, then you're good to take it. That also means that if you, want to seriously indulge in some retail therapy once you're in your destination, then you can do. You can, stock up on presents or souvenirs for friends, family, yourself, whoever it might be. And you also don't need to worry about fluids as well. Liquids you can take, as long as it's not, an open can or bottle of liquid, you can take liquids with you. You can take food and drink, have a picnic on board the train as well. So all of those options are available to you. So thanks for that one, Frank. Hope that answered your question. Okay, so let's perhaps see if we can maybe do one other one quickly. Okay, we have a question from Mary. I'll see if I can answer your question quickly, Mary. Mary's question is about the hotels that we feature. Can you tell us a little bit more about them? So obviously you won't look at every single one for you now, Mary, but to answer very quickly on that one, each of these holidays that we've looked at today and all of the other ones we feature, if you look at them on our website, there'll be a featured hotel in each destination. But like I said, we can customize them for you. You're not restricted into staying at that one particular hotel. So we have a range of different hotels from 3-star through to 5. So if you'd rather, upgrade the hotel, or as I mentioned earlier, if there's a particular part of the city you want to stay in, or you prefer to stay in modern hotels or more traditional hotels, wherever it might be, all you need to do is let us know. If you want to upgrade the room as well, you can mention that as well, and we can do that for you. So obviously each city has hundreds, if not thousands, of hotels. Do we work with every single one? No, of course we don't. We can't. That's not possible because the sheer numbers involved. But we've got something that covers every eventuality. So in all the main cities, like say New York, Paris, wherever it might be, we've got hotels in all the most popular locations. So if you want to stay in the Latin Quarter in Paris, for example, rather than the location the featured hotel on your holiday is in, that's fine. We can change it. If you'd rather stay in a 5-star or a 4-star rather than a 3-star, that's no problem. We can do that, and so on. If the holiday has a 4-star, you'd rather have a 3-star, that's fine too. So whatever the option is, really, the message is you just need to let us know what it is that you're looking for, and we can find something that fits those criteria. Okay, I can see that there's lots more questions that have come through. So thanks very much for everyone who has submitted them. We will be in touch with you. One of the team will reach out to you to make sure we've answered all of those. So thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's been interesting and entertaining, and if nothing else, as I said, distraction from current events, current affairs, from the news. We haven't mentioned Durham Castle once in the course of the webinar, so a distraction from all of that. And just like to say, please do continue to look after yourselves. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hope all of you are safe and well. It is really important, so hope that's the case. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be able to think about starting to travel on some of these wonderful journeys that we've looked at today. So please do continue to look after yourselves, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great evening, great rest of the day. And who knows, maybe speak to you again on a webinar in the not too distant future. Thanks very much.